Battlezones are the new mechanic introduced in Eternal Return Season 8. They are meant to give players an alternative to showing up to objectives and spread out a lobby from being too congested. In this video, we're going to go over the basics of Battlezones, and whether you should show up to a Battlezone or an objective. I'll also be giving out a hidden tech for what to do when your nerve shuttle explodes and the other player still has theirs. What's poppin' everyone, it's your boy Levi, and before anything else, let's make sure we understand what Battlezones are. Battlezones will always appear on Day 2 and Day 3, at the same time as Alpha and Omega respectively. There will be 3 Battlezones in solo mode, and 2 in duos and squads. They are indicated by a yellow zone with a symbol on top during the night before. To enter a Battlezone, you need to be in the respected zone before the day begins. The symbol indicates the type of Battlezone. The shoe symbol indicates the acceleration zone. While fighting in this zone, you will have increased movement speed and cooldown reduction, but cannot exceed the cooldown reduction cap. The sword is the Berserk Zone. While fighting in this zone, you have increased Omnisiphon and increased final damage. The shield symbol is the defense zone. While fighting in this zone, you will have a shield when out of combat for 3 or more seconds. The shield grants bonus regen and scales larger if it's the Day 3 Battlezone. And also, can I get a like and subscribe for this Battlezone win? Once you are in a Battlezone, it's time to fight to the death with all the other players. This gives players a chance to go all out early into the game, as you will respawn in a selected zone if you don't win the Battlezone. You cannot choose to respawn in a Battlezone. So now that you know what each Battlezone does, how do you win one? The simple answer is to just kill all the other players in the zone. However, you'll have to pay attention to your nerve overflow gauge. This fancy name is just your Battlezone timer in essence. When your nerve overflow gauge fills up, you will explode and lose the Battlezone. This is not down in team modes. You will instantly die and have to revive somewhere else. Your nerve overflow gauge can be refilled by getting kills and grabbing nerve stabilizers. Nerve stabilizers can be found on nerve shuttles, which pace back and forth in the zone. There are 2 nerve shuttles per Battlezone, and when there are only 2 teams left, or it's a 1v1 in solos, one of the nerve shuttles explodes. Shuttles also have a finite amount of stabilizers and will explode if taken too many times. The hidden tech for Battlezones has to do when being in a 1v1 situation. Because one nerve shuttle explodes when the final fight is a 1v1, the players whose nerve shuttle doesn't explode has the advantage typically. That player doesn't have to go anywhere, while the players whose did explode now has to run over to the other side, wasting part of their nerve overflow gauge to fight that person. If you're the person with the shuttle still, you likely have a nerve overflow gauge advantage, giving yourself a second win condition. It's the same as fighting someone in a final zone when you have more timer than them. If they're stronger than you don't have to kill them. You just have to survive longer and stop them from getting the nerve stabilizer on your side. So what do you do if you're that person whose nerve shuttle does explode? When the nerve shuttle explodes, it will release a large amount of nerve stabilizers. You want to collect these before you run over to the other side, but without overcapping on them. If the other player abandons his nerve shuttle and runs over to you for some reason, you now have the gauge advantage. And if they stay, but burn down their own nerve stabilizer, you will also have the gauge advantage. It's unfortunately one of those situations when you're banking on your opponent to misplay rather than you to outplay. Hopefully this gets addressed as the season goes on. I would like to see both stabilizers explode, and a neutral shuttle spawn between the two with reduced health to fight over. This would create the opportunity for players to decide to use their abilities on the shuttle and play for their gauge, or on the opponent and go for the kill. Winning a Battlezone results in a reward for the player. In the case of team modes, only one reward will be generated, so choose wisely. Rewards are based on the amount of players in the Battlezone. You can open the rewards menu by clicking on the tab or by using the security cam console. If you happen to be the only player in the Battlezone, congrats, you win. However, you only get to pick from the lowest tier of rewards. A free rare resource is still a free rare resource. A number will appear below the reward based on the amount of players that died in that Battlezone. Players will be able to choose from a rare resource, excluding VF blood, or from one of the 5 mythic items. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out each individual mythic item. It should be noted that once you win a Battlezone, you will eventually have to leave it as it becomes a red zone. Your timer won't start ticking until night regardless if you leave the zone and come back, so don't feel rushed to pick your rewards if you're a new player. Don't take too much time though. The reward will disappear if nothing is claimed, indicated by a timer at the top. After claiming your reward, it's recommended that you take the hunts in the Battlezone area as well. You will be the only player whose timer doesn't tick when you're in the zone immediately. This is free mastery, and it's relatively safe to collect. If you win the first Battlezone, you'll lose your Battlezone kit, which is given to every player at the start of the game. The Battlezone kit is what allows you to revive after dying in a Battlezone. You do not lose your Battlezone kit upon death, so feel free to try again in the second Battlezone if you lose the first one. As the game goes on and there is less and less players, or you're feeling confident, you can also try the second Battlezone, even if you won the first one. You can gamble on being the only one to show up, or that you'll win the zone outright, but if you lose the Battlezone, you won't respawn. Finally, let's talk about who should go to a Battlezone or not. As stated earlier, Battlezones spawn alongside Alpha and Omega, giving the player an option to take an objective or fight in a Battlezone. Because I haven't mastered every character in the game, I can only give general advice on which to choose. Typically, characters that have a way of poking and avoiding commitment to a fight do better at objectives. For example, Adina typically likes to go to objectives because she can freely toss out spells from range and run away with her movement speed buff and her CC immunity if engaged on. If her opponent tries to take an objective, she bombards them with spells and they have to either fight with the android hitting them or run away. A character like Marcus doesn't do well at objectives. He doesn't have any long range projectiles or poke and wants to get up on you to fight. He can CC people to create an easy target for a third party and can stack his grit passive on the nerve shuttles, so he's better in battle zones. This isn't a one-size-fits-all formula because there's characters like Sua who have poke but still do well at objectives and a battle zone, and characters like Yuki who don't do well like either. In poor Yuki's case, he doesn't have any long-range poke for objectives, and he has to commit for every fight. But Yuki also can't hit the nerve shuttles in battle zones to refill his nerve overflow gauge. They will consume his button-up stacks, resulting in the loss of damage. At the time of this video, Nimble Neuron is actively reducing these types of interactions to create a more balanced zone. A general strategy for which battle zone you should compete in is if you have a long-range poke ability, or want to sit back and throw out spells or basic attacks, you probably want the defense zone. These characters typically have high CDR or don't benefit at all from CDR in their build already, and won't benefit from the acceleration zone, and it will just make it easier for opponents to get on top of you with the movement speed. This zone will typically have the most crossover with the objective takers. If you're a character that wants to duel and needs to ramp up in a fight, you'll want the Berserk Zone. The bonus Omni Siphon will let you stay alive longer to stack whatever you need, and the bonus damage once you reach your peak will push you over the edge in most matchups. And if you're a character that wants to run and get on top of someone, you would want the Acceleration Zone. This zone will let you be more sticky and lets you use your gap closing spells more often. Keep in mind this is just a general strategy. There are a few other factors that go into the strategy, such as counterplay and location. If I'm a character like Laura that doesn't need help sticking to people once I get onto them, do I go to the Berserk Zone where I can benefit from the Omni Siphon? Or do I go to the Defense Zone where long range mages can't really deal with me if I get onto them? If I'm a character like Hyunwoo who likes to run at people and wall stun, do I take the Acceleration Zone if it's an avenue with lots of wide open spaces? Or do I want a different zone in Chapel with tons of tight corridors? The choice is ultimately yours. Thank you so much for watching if you made it to this point. I hope you learned something out of this video. This is just a general guide on the basics of battle zones and just some ideas on which one you should go to. There's yet to be a distinctive meta per se for the battle zones, but be sure to subscribe so you're notified when there is. Let me know in the comments if you like battle zones too. I personally think they're a great addition to the game. Subscribe for more videos similar to this one, and be sure to click the video in the end card for news on Lumia Marathon, the newest squads tournament coming to Eternal Return in Season 8.